Break free from your local area and unleash the power of virtual wholesaling. We'll reveal why the best deals are not in your backyard and how to make money today, anywhere in the country. Join us as we interview top investors, reveal their best secrets, and turn them into actionable steps so you can duplicate their success and do deals right now. You're listening to Virtual Wholesaling Made Simple, your key to unlocking fortunes and freedom in wholesaling.
Welcome everybody to Wealthy Wednesday. I'm really excited to be here with one of our new clients, Connor. This isn't a training here tonight. This is not theory. This is real conversations with someone who was just where a lot of you guys are. I've talked to a lot of people recently who have been taking a lot of action, spinning their wheels, not getting the results they want, and they just can't pinpoint the one thing they needed to shift to be able to get the results they want. Connor went from 0 deals to now 3 contracts, 2 contracts his first week, and now his third one that's on the way here. And I believe he's just like 2 weeks into the program, or almost 3 weeks in the program. Connor, I'd love to dive in with you here and kind of share with everybody here more about your journey. So take us back for a minute. What were you doing like before this that wasn't working? Maybe you could kind of share that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first off, I really appreciate, you having me on. I'm super excited for this, but yeah, just to give, everyone a little bit of background. So I live in South Carolina, but I virtually operate my wholesale real estate business in Central Georgia. And for me, and I think a lot of other people, started off my journey in December, kind of going through what you would call YouTube, university, kind of the DIY, figure it out. And, just spent the first month really, just watching videos, getting, my system set up, like the software for pulling lists, got the triple line dialer, some scripts, and, thought that was all I needed. And, I'm ready to go, and I just need to start calling people, and, a deal is going to come up quickly. But so starting in January, I would say, is really when my cold calling efforts started. So was grinding for, say, about an hour a day for 2.5 months of just cold calling, just trying to find something that's going to stick. And yeah, I think I was generating enough leads, I would say, on average, anywhere from like 4 to 7 a week, but just wasn't having anything that really stuck. And what I kept telling myself really was, this must just be a numbers game. And, I just don't have enough time to be successful in this business. I'm not getting enough offers out, or not having enough good conversations. And so I think looking back at that time, after I'd spoken with you, I realized that it wasn't necessarily about generating enough leads, but I was more system poor, and I didn't have the right approach when I was coming into these conversations with homeowners. So was missing that foundational piece. And I think really the big shift was my conversation with you, and you kind of explained that not having enough time isn't normally an issue. It's typically a systems issue in the approach with the sellers that can really be tweaked. And so one of the things that I had realized my first 2.5 months is, when I was coming into a lot of these calls, is coming off as a little bit robotic. I think a lot of these homeowners are getting calls from folks that are running similar businesses to ours, and, asking the same questions. And so a lot of it was focused entirely on price. And so was really trying to find a way to myself and stick out from, the rest of the pack and these other calls that these homeowners were getting. And so it was really at that point I started diving into, how should I be approaching these conversations, and how can I shift these conversations from price focus to more problem solving. And so I think the biggest thing that especially you've helped me realize is, wholesaling isn't always about transaction, but it's more a relationship business. And, showing the seller that you can, for one, build trust with them, execute on their transaction, as well as, empathize with them and really build a relationship through those calls. And so the big shift for me was, I really stopped trying to focus on the price and asking, the same questions that a lot of these homeowners are getting, and try to win on empathy. So when I say that, the conversation shifted from the property itself more to the person's motivation behind selling it. So for example, I would ask questions like, if we were able to come to an agreement today and to find, a price that you feel is acceptable and you'd be ready to move forward on, would that lift some, weight off of your shoulders and like put you in a place where you have some peace of mind and you're ready to move forward? So it's really deeper diving questions like that where you're pivoting the conversation from price specific and the property to how can I solve your problem in your situation that you're in, and push it towards what the motivation is and really dive into that and explain how you can be a problem solver for them. So that was really, I'd say, the number one thing for me is the way I was approaching these conversations. I think it's easy to come in and ask the same 10, 15 questions, but if you can really dive into their responses and listen more than you're speaking and show empathy and show, how you can be a problem solver as opposed to someone that just wants to come in and, just get a deal and like get yourself paid.
Yeah.
So really, I think it's, if you can find a way to focus in on their motivation and show how you can be problem solver, empathize with them, and ask deeper questions than just the surface level questions, then that was really the big switch for me. And then what I realized was on those calls, I was developing relationships with these homeowners. And so that was really like the big switch. They started to trust me more, really was able to help walk them through, how I'm looking at things, their situation, and, how I can be able to help. And I think that put a light at the end of the tunnel for a lot of these owners compared to some conversations that they'd had with other wholesalers previously. So that's a little bit high level, but happy to dig into any specifics.
No, that was great. So what I love about Connor in the beginning of his journey is that most people drag their feet tremendously when it comes to making calls, right? But I love how you kind of jumped in, embraced the discomfort, and just focused on the activity. And you did the activity until you reached the end of what you knew. And then from there, once you realized that you couldn't figure this out on your own, that's when you reached out, we connected, and we identified the holes in your system, plugged them up. And then from there, you ended up getting deals under contract. So the biggest reason that I find that people don't get results a lot of times for people who are picking up the phone like Connor, making calls, it's not a lack of effort, guys. It's a lack of clarity. That's it. Because Connor was making the calls. He was setting aside an hour. And I also want you guys to catch that one thing that he said too. Connor's not sitting here dialing for 5 hours a day, not even 3 hours a day. He started out with just an hour a day. The days he had more time, he dialed more, I'm sure. The days he had less time, he'd dial less. But the key here is consistency. Consistency is the one thing that separates a lot of people from want a deal from the people that are doing deals. So I love how you kind of walk through that shift. So at what point did you realize this is starting to click and I'm starting to get it?
Yeah, honestly, I think it was probably within the first couple of days, just having, a conversation with you and just going through, this is what I'm doing now. What can I tweak to make this more efficient, to make this better? So, I'm not spinning my wheels every single day, just trying to get a deal done, but just having a proven, system in place, follow-up process, and being able to track my performance, where I'm getting these leads from, what's working, what's not, and then really diving into those things, into what's working specifically. But yeah, also that, but it was a mindset shift that I think happened pretty quickly after us getting connected. So that was really the mindset shift and, starting to put a system together in place that I knew would work and just had to follow it strictly as opposed to DIY, trying to figure it out and do it yourself. So that was really the big switch for me. Was honestly within the first couple days, it was like pretty quick. And like you said, we're 3 weeks now, just had another contract signed up on Monday. So really just building some momentum now and super pumped to see where this can go. So
I love that. Love that. And guys, don't miss what Connor just said here too. Okay. He didn't say he got more information. He didn't say that he started dialing more, adding more time into his day. He said it was a mindset shift that caused him to go from where he was before to where he is now, going from not locking up deals to putting deals under contract. A lot of times people are focused on all the stuff that doesn't matter, like which CRM do you use? this script, that script, right? But at the end of the day, all the tools in the world mean absolutely zero if you don't have the mindset shift to go along with them to implement them correctly. So you could have the right script in front of you. You could have even the right process in front of you. But one of my mentors told me as I was coming up in my entrepreneur journey, and he said this one thing and it stuck with me. He said, if your mindset ain't right, your wallet's never going to be right. And one of the things that wealthy people do is wealthy people love speed. They don't like taking 10 years to try and figure something out on their own. What they do is they find someone who's been there, who knows how to get to where they want to go, and then they pay that person to be able to learn how to get there faster. Because when you can do that, you compress time frames and you go from taking years to figure something out to having something click like instantly. So again, Connor didn't do more. He didn't work more hours. He did more of the right things. So let's talk about actual deals, right? How did those conversations go with the deals that you have under contract? I know 2 of those deals came from one seller, I believe. So kind of walk us through that conversation and how it went.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think for one, actually the first deal, it was one he had thought about selling for a while. And specifically the first property that we had spoken about, it was a situation where, there were tenants in there and he had a good relationship with the tenants, wasn't really sure what to do with them, but he was in a situation where he was getting a little bit older. He didn't want the properties. They needed a lot of work and he just couldn't keep up with it. And so he was a little bit torn between, hey, these tenants, I have a close relationship with them. I don't want to have them move out. But at the same time, I know that it needs to be sold and the end buyer is likely going to want to fix this up. So really the conversation went through how, which would be better for you, and keeping the tenants in there and holding on to the property for another 6 months, or finding a situation where, hey, maybe we can find a place for these tenants to go. I know you have a close relationship with them. So finding a way to solve that problem. And really, 20, 30 minutes deeper into the conversation, I started to learn that he actually had other properties as well. And so we started diving in deeper to whether any of those were vacant and the tenants could potentially be open to moving into one of those. So kind of really opened up his mind a little bit to that. And he actually had a conversation with the tenants to see if they'd be open to moving into one of his other properties. And so thankfully they were, and it opened up a situation where, hey, they said they'd be fine with that. I could actually get them to move out into one of my other ones at the end of this month. And, if that sounds good with you, then we can move forward with the sale of this one. And, you can flip it or do whatever you think is right. And then, so that was the first property we talked through. The second one was actually completely vacant, fire damage, needed a ton of work. And he just had held on to it for years, had never done anything with it. Wanted to find the right price, but was just getting to the point where, it was too much. Taxes were owed on it as well. I think a couple of years back in taxes. So really just built a relationship with him, talking through what his motivations were and explaining that this is where I can help you. And if we can come to an agreement on price, do you think that would, give you some relief? And if I'm able to help you walk through to how to solve the issues or the problems that you're going through, how would that make you feel? And how would that put some relief off of you? So those first 2 went pretty smoothly. And I think I actually still talk to the seller almost every day, just with updates. So really have developed a great relationship with him. The third deal recently.
Well, hold on one second. Let me pause
sorry.
right there. No, you're good. So did you guys catch the types of questions that Connor's asking right there? There's a really big difference in reading a question on a piece of paper and asking the question in a way where the seller can see how you're trying to solve their problem. Do you see how he's coming across as a problem solver? That right there is the type of questions you want to be asking sellers that makes them feel comfortable. A lot of people think rapport, you got to build all this fake rapport. Oh, you like fishing, I like fishing. You like dogs, I like dogs. That stuff doesn't work anymore, right? What people really want to know is that they're heard and that you care. That's it, right? And you're asking these questions in a way that allows them to kind of open up and share what's going on. I feel like a lot of people expect when they're cold calling sellers to automatically open up and be like, oh, let me just tell you my personal, most deepest, darkest secrets of where things are at right now to a complete stranger. And they think that's going to come out right away, but it doesn't. A lot of times these sellers that you talk to, they seem unmotivated to sell their property. They may be asking a higher price. And the difference between you getting the deal and not is the quality of the questions you ask. And so these types of questions that Connor's asking, pay attention to this. Go back and watch the replay if we decide to offer that. You're going to want to listen to that because these are the types of questions that get real sellers to open up and feel comfortable sharing with you the real motivation so you can actually get deals across the finish line if there's a problem to solve. So the biggest thing here, guys, is deals come from conversations, not perfection. You don't need a perfect process to get this going. You need to take massive imperfect action, just like he did in the very beginning. He was making a lot of calls. He was putting in the activity. And then he had that down, the consistency. And then all of a sudden, when we were able to connect and plug a few holes in the system, deals started happening. So share with us a little bit more about that third deal and how that came about.
Absolutely. So the third one, this was actually a gentleman I had been trying to get in touch with for weeks. And this was even prior to, us having a conversation, was just didn't really, I think for one on this one, I at that time didn't have a proven like follow-up system and like a timing system in terms of like how I should be, approaching and, getting this person on the phone. So really the biggest thing for me was I like to call it like triple call, voicemail, text message. And I did that like, every couple days. So that was super helpful for me. Finally was able to have a conversation with him, realized that the gentleman had been going through some medical issues, unfortunately. But yeah, was able to have a couple calls, each one was a little bit shorter, trying to find him at the right time where we could really sit down and hash out, his situation and figure out where I could be a problem solver. But it was a deal where he had inherited a property a couple of years ago that had some fire damage to it, but was in a really, really nice neighborhood. It just needed, a big lift. And yeah, I think for that one specifically, it was really around my follow-up, but similar to all the rest of the deals, it's the way you approach the calls. So this gentleman specifically, he wanted to fix up the property originally. He had some medical issues, so really just tried to emphasize of that and ask similar questions to the last one we had spoke about is, hey, if I'm able to put together a price or put together something that you see or terms that you see as acceptable, do you think that would give you some relief? And, you can use this for medical bills or for family or, whatever you might have.
Yeah.
And, just kind of lift like some weight off your shoulders so you don't have this weighing down on you. You don't have to worry about paying taxes on it or anything like that. And, you could just move forward, get paid, get your money, be happy, and all those things. So that was a tricky one, I think, specifically just around the follow-up and trying to get the person on the phone, but just following a right system in terms of like how I'm approaching my follow-up calls. And that system was really the big game changer on that one. So little bit trickier, but yeah.
And with that third deal, I'm curious, how long did it take that seller to move forward? For example, when you were first cold calling, was this a lead that you were cold calling and you just got like last week and he converted this week, or is this one you've been following up with for a long time?
This was from a list that I pulled, I want to say 5 or 6 weeks ago, and I just been going through it and originally got him on the phone. It wasn't a good time. Tried to call back, no answer for a couple weeks and just kept following up. And then finally was able to get him on the phone. But yeah, it was one that, really just had to keep tracking down. During our first conversation, he had mentioned that there was an interest in selling. But yeah, it was just, really just the right type of follow-up, right timing, trying to put together the right time to reach out to him. And in fact, we had a conversation a week or so ago, stating that he was interested in selling. He deemed it as an acceptable offer, put together the offer letter, the offer agreement, sent it over to him. And then it was just crickets for, a couple days after that. And then so another follow-up call. And then we had another conversation for, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes or so. And then it was at that point he realized like, okay, I'm ready. Now's the right time. Let's do this. sent it over.
Yeah.
We went through the contract on the phone, and then next thing you know, it's contract signed. We're hitting the ground running. So
That's amazing. Yeah, you've heard the saying, fortunes in the follow-up. 75% of your deals is going to come from follow-up. A lot of people expect people to move forward just on the first call, but the majority of your deals is going to come from follow-up. And that's a great example of how you use follow-up and patience, which is key, right? You can't act like you really want it to be able to get that deal under contract. So that's amazing. The biggest obstacle that you'll face in your first year as a wholesaler before doing your first deal is the conversation that takes place between your two ears. Like that right there is the number one thing that can hold you back more than anything, right? And so the way to overcome that is literally to pick up the phone and make calls. It doesn't matter if they're pretty. It doesn't matter if you stutter on the phone when you first connect with a seller. It doesn't matter if you hang up on them the first time, just so you got the call in, right? It's all about taking action, being consistent, and the numbers will play out. And if the numbers don't play out, then that's where the guidance comes along, where we can plug some of those holes and be like, okay, here's what you need to take this to the next stage and get what you want out of this. So love it. Once you kind of figured things out, Connor, like, were you surprised how simple this actually was?
yeah, I think the one thing that surprised me coming in was I had this approach or this thought that, like I said earlier, I don't have enough time. This is a numbers game. I'm not going to be able to be successful in this because, I can't call for 5 hours every single day. So really the biggest surprise for me was, that's not the case. There's actually a lot of people that are very successful and are doing multiple deals every month that are also working, a full-time job and are able to be successful in this. And so really just the biggest shock for me was once you have the right systems in place, you have the right script, you have the right proven process and as well as, your approach to sellers, that it just gets so much easier and you don't have to spend, all the time in the day to get a deal done. As long as you're efficient with your time and you're organized and you have a way to track all these things and you have the right approach. So just literally within the first couple of days of like setting up my business correctly was the big kind of switch. And now, yeah, it's pretty straightforward and it's simple. You just got to follow it and be consistent with it. And you don't need, all the time in the world to make this work. So that was really the biggest light bulb moment for me was, hey, you actually don't need to do this full time to get a couple deals done. Like if you do the right things in the amount of time that you have, then, you're going to be able to do as many deals as you want. So
I love that you said that, because it's not about the time that you put into this business. It's what you do with the time you put in this business. A lot of people are very much like, shoot, all or nothing. I either put 5 hours in this business or I can't get started at all. If I can't put the level of commitment I want to put into it, then I'm not going to get started. Or some people will come in saying, I'm going to dial 5 hours a day. And then when they don't dial 5 hours a day, they feel like they fail. You just have to have a small window of focused time, whether that's 30 minutes or whether it's an hour each day, to be able to dial consistently. That's realistic. You can fit it in your schedule and you can get deals just like Connor here, right? So it's less about how much time you put in, more about what you do with the time and the fact that you're consistent too, right? I'd rather someone say, I'm going to dial consistently 30 minutes a day than I would someone say, I dialed 5 hours one day, nothing for 2 days, 3 hours the next day. It's just, your business is going to be like this. But I love how you're committing to these small windows, because we have a lot of very busy members in our group here, right? We have a lot of parents, we have business owners, they work busy W-2 jobs like yourself. When I started, I was working like 80 hours a week, and it can be a lot to build this. But if you have the right system and you are setting a clean, realistic window that you can commit to every single day, and you can be consistent with that for long enough, like, this business can work. It doesn't matter where you're at, like the experience you have. It's about taking small steps every single day consistently, because those add up to a big end result. A lot of people watching right now are exactly where you were. So what would you say to them? Someone who's either struggling to pick up the phone and make the calls, or someone who's making the calls like you were, but not seeing the results, like what would you say that they need to do?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I would give, well, three pieces of advice. I think the first one is the only way to guarantee failure in this business is to quit. And so I think everything else outside of that is just practice, and it's an opportunity to get better. It's okay to go into these calls and to make mistakes, as long as you're learning from them and you're growing and you're getting better in this process each and every day, and honing in those conversation skills. That's the first one. I'd say second, focus less on the transaction and put yourself in a position of being a professional problem solver. So I think the contract and the assignment fee is just a byproduct of you being able to solve someone else's problems and in their situation. And so thirdly, I would say if you can find a way and you have the means to shorten that learning curve, absolutely do it. I was doing DIY studying myself for months and really with no results. And so really once I got the right mentorship in place, it was like super quick, just deals started coming in, and was just much more efficient with your time. So I think you don't know what you don't know until you find someone like who does and who has been through this process and can help walk you through like, hey, this is exactly the system and what you need to put in place. And it's super quick after that. So I would say those are the biggest, piece of advice for anyone getting in is don't quit. That's the only way to guarantee failure. Put yourself in a position as a professional problem solver. And if you have the means, find a way to shorten that learning curve. So
Awesome. All great advice. Connor, I want to know something. What would have happened if you would have waited? Like, let's say you didn't make the decision to get the advice to change things for you. Like, what do you think would have happened if you would have continued waiting, like on the same path?
yeah, that's a great question. Honestly, I could have been 6, 8 months in and no deals, and probably, would have backed myself into a corner and thought something's wrong. This business must not work, or I'm doing something that's seriously wrong and just not having enough conversations. But yeah, I think, could have potentially put myself in a position where it was just months in and potentially looking to stop and to switch to something else. So luckily was able to get the right advice at a time when I really needed it and really pulled through.
Love that. How many of you does this sound like? You've been taking action and you're not really sure what's broken, but you've kind of just been sitting there trying to figure things out on your own for months, like wondering if this business can actually work for you. This is so important. So to emphasize kind of what Connor said here, action creates clarity. It's not the other way around, guys. So you take action, you get clarity, and then from there, you identify, do I have the answer? No? Okay, who can I get in touch with that has the answer? And then take that next step forward. Because where I find people just crush their momentum is when they stay stuck for far too long. Then it becomes harder and harder to take steps forward. So the key to gaining momentum is staying stuck for as little time as possible so you can keep moving forward and taking those steps of confidence. How did it feel to get those deals locked up? I got to know. First you get the one deal, like, oh my gosh, you do the second deal, like, I'm the third deal. I mean,
it was great, man. I mean, it was just, there's so many months behind it of prep and, like you said, just trying to take action, but just not having anything stick. It was finally like a relief of like, okay, I've put in all this time, like it's, it really does work and you can make this work and turn this into a business, full time or side business, whatever you want. But yeah, I mean, it was really just a huge relief in seeing that like all of the fruits of your labor are kind of coming to fruition. So yeah, it was very exciting and ready to do more.
Yeah, for sure. I know for a fact that you have plenty more deals on the way. So guys, this is not luck. This is what happens when someone stops guessing and starts moving. They start taking action. If tonight showed you anything, it's that results don't come from knowing more. They come from doing the right things in the right order. And sometimes you know what those things are, and sometimes you just got to ask the person that does know those things so you can put things in the right order, right? I want to speak to a few of you all directly, right? So if you saw yourself in Connor and you've been putting in effort but not getting results, and you're realizing it's not motivation, you don't need another YouTube video, it's clarity, then your next step is to book a Freedom Roadmap call with us. This is not a sales call, it's a clarity call. And what we're going to look at is like where you're at, what's holding you back, and what your next move should be. So I'm going to go ahead and drop this link here in the chat. So give me 1 second. I'll drop this right here. So go to that link right there. And if it makes sense to work together on that call, I'll tell you. So this call is really to kind of uncover where you're stuck and see if it makes sense for us either to talk more and see what support looks like, or just hook you up with some free resources that can help you over some type of like hump that you're stuck on right now to get you unstuck, right? It's all about you and uncovering what you need to get the results you want. Again, if it doesn't make sense to work together, I'll tell you, I'll hook you up with some free resources to kind of help you on the journey. But what I don't want is for you to leave this call motivated and then go right back to guessing. So Connor didn't move because he felt ready. He moved because he stopped trying to do this alone. So you don't need more time. You don't need more information. You just need the right path forward. So let me open my screen really quick, and I'm going to show you what this looks like, this form, and then we'll open up here for questions for Connor and then close out tonight. So give me 1 second while I pop this open. Open the chat. I'm going to grab this. Perfect. So when you click the link here, what's going to happen is you're going to get to this page. We're going to see these two amazing smiling people on the page. And you're just going to pick either me or Heather. Doesn't matter. It really just depends on who lines up best with your calendar. Mine looks like it's full right there. So you're going to come over here to Heather and pick a time on her schedule. And again, she'll have a conversation with you, kind of learn more about where you're at, where you're stuck. And from there, take it one step at a time. So I really look forward to connecting with you all. When you select this here, you're just going to enter your information here, where you're at, what do you need the most help with right now. So that'll help us prepare a few things for our call. And we're genuinely looking forward to talking with you and seeing how we can best help you, whatever that means on your journey. I'll hang here a minute while you guys grab a spot on the calendar. And if you don't see any spots open, but there's a day that you have available, go ahead and send me a DM on Facebook and I'll see if there's something we can open up to get you in. Connor, it's been awesome, man. I really appreciate you being on here and just sharing everything you have. Guys, what do you think? Did you guys get a lot of value out of Connor's case study here tonight? Very cool. What you're doing is obviously working. Continue on that path. I know there's many more deals in your future, and I'm just excited to be a small part of your long and very successful journey in this business. So thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of your night tonight, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
That wraps up today's episode. Your next step is to head on over to virtualwholesalingmadesimple.com. Join our community and get your chance to book a strategy session and apply to work personally with one of our coaches. We look forward to seeing you on the next show with our next amazing guest. Talk soon.